the Cosmetic Podcast.
This podcast amplifies the topics you want to hear about.
Cosmetic means being a person or thing that gives rise to a phenomenon that is dynamic or energizing.
Globally minded and locally focused.
I'm Rodrigo Ross.
Keith Benson.
So today we are talking about, is it lonely at the top? This is another installment of our CEO series talking about how is it to lead through really difficult times, and how can that be simultaneously challenging and gratifying? And so I am super excited. Let me tell you right now, there will be lots of schmoozing going on, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not. We have the one and only Curt Hazelbaker, President and CEO of the Dallas Y, our boss. Yes, who is navigating this space for the Dallas Y in a most amazing way. Not only is he an incredible leader, he is an amazing person. Welcome to the Cosmetic Podcast, Curt. Yes, I'm so excited. Woo-woo.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for letting me on. This is great.
Yeah.
So, Curt, we're in the midst of this pandemic right now, and I just want to know what was going through your mind when that day came and they said that we had to shut down. Like, give me that rawness of what you felt, what you thought, and then that action, that you had to take from there.
I remember that well because it was almost a year ago. It was a year ago, a couple of days ago. And getting that word, feeling the weight of what that meant. That means we have to stop everything we're doing. Not just the buildings, but all the programs, the sports, the things we're doing with teams. The weight just hits you, and for a couple of minutes, you just had to think, what does that mean? And what's going to be expected of me and of our team that we carry the Y forward? And so there was the immediacy of, wow, it's here. But then the reality of, you got to act quick, because we've got people. We've got, at the time, we had almost 2,500 staff working for us. They're hearing it when we are. Board members, parents of kids in the program, they're all expecting something. What does this mean that you're shutting down? So we had to quickly ramp up and think through the immediacy of what we know. We have been ordered to shut down and get that out. And details will come later, because we had to react. Because if you all remember, when we got that notice, it was late in the day. It was like 4:30, 5 o'clock when we got it. And so we had to pull our messaging together pretty quick to get it out, knowing when the calls are starting coming in. Our staff are questioning that. They're questioning their safety. We've got to have that in mind as well. So it was, that's a day I will never forget. Hope to never have to live it again, but I will never forget that one.
Yeah. And so when you had to do that at that time, did you get the sense that it would be so long? Like, did you think, okay, this is probably going to be a week or 2 weeks, it's inconvenient? Or did you get the sense then that this is a thing?
Well, you remember when it was announced, it was, I think it was 2 weeks or 15 days is what we need. And so your immediate thought is there's a horizon on this that we know I think it was 15 days. We're going to be done with this in 15. It's going to disrupt everything we're going to do. 15 days, it'll be over. And so your thought is, okay, I think we can navigate through this. I think we can figure out what to do in 2 weeks. And then when it started to drag on, then that's where, okay, this is a whole different leadership style that I'm used to, that our staff is used to, that anybody's used to. And so it was, the reality hit, I guess a week in, when they decided this thing's going to go longer than 15 days.
Yeah.
So, like, you're the CEO, you're the top, and like you have all these 2,500 people looking up at you at that time. And our title here today is Lonely at the Top. Like, talk to me a little bit about what it's like to be that CEO, that heavy weight that just came upon. Like, who did you have to reach out to? Like, we have some folks that, we go to the parking lot, right, and talk to, because, we're not the CEO and we know everything that we should do, right? But that decision lies upon you. Like, who do you branch out to talk to? I mean,
I'm fortunate. I've been in the Y for a long time. So I've got a circle of CEOs that we weren't CEOs when we started, but we've grown up and we're CEOs. I've got a network of those that I talked to. Really leaned a lot on volunteers. Our executive committee got plugged in real quick. We had our first executive committee. We were emailing through the week, but our first call was that first Saturday morning, kind of going through what to expect with this. Your weight question, Keith, it is a weight, because what I remember, and still to this day is still an issue. We're not only dealing with our staff, we're dealing with their family. I can't tell you how many messages I got from staff, emails or texts. I'm learning more from you than my husband's learning, my wife is learning, and you're calm through this. I mean, you two know me well enough and have heard me say this, that I'm not a high guy and I'm not a low guy, because I think it's important that staff, volunteers see he's consistent in this. A leader's, not just me, but a leader's consistent in this. Because if I'm running like this, people aren't sure what Curt they're going to get, or what Rod, or what Keith on a daily basis if your emotions run like this. So being calm through this is important. And I think frequent communication is something we try to do early on. Transparency is key. I didn't have the answers, and I wasn't afraid to tell people I don't know the answers. I mean, we're pulling different teams together to think through this thing, and not trying not to project, hey, I know what's going to happen, I know what we need to do, when I didn't. It was, we're navigating this thing, we're trying to figure it out, and we did it together. So we relying on different teams is key, relying on different people through the organization. And I think it's important as a leader that you're getting information from other avenues. Like, I read a lot, so I'm looking at how different leaders lead in different organizations. I learn a lot from how to run an organization or how not to run an organization, just through newspapers and business magazines I get, because I take those nuggets from them and try to make me better at what I do. So that's a lot with how I look at it. But saying all that, I really enjoy it. I mean, I think I think we're all better for going through 2020. None of us wanted to do it. Not all of us hope we don't have to do it again. But boy, it pushed us in different ways to get better. And you really saw, I saw, you all probably saw it as well, people step up who probably wouldn't have done that if they weren't into the situation we were. And that was really cool to see people thrive, given that opportunity, and just how some of the leadership emerged. So that's a good takeaway.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask you, after you had gotten past this 2 weeks, you realized that this thing was probably going to be way more long-term than we anticipated. And folks were really jumping into their passion and wanting to serve and wanting to do different things. When did you know as a leader to give them that freedom, right? To push the stuff out of the way, by still in the back of your mind, I'm sure you were thinking, but if they tell us we got to open in a week, we got to figure out how to get back to where we were or whatever. Because as one of those staff members that I was like, okay, I need to do this. The second thing I thought after I thought of that was like, what's going to be the pushback? Are there going to be roadblocks? Like, am I going to have to fight so hard internally that I can't get this thing done externally? And that wasn't the case at all. Like, I had this whole soliloquy to give to you and Brandy Perryman, and y'all came back and said, well, what you want to do, Rod? Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. So when did you know, or how did you know, let your people go, let them live in their passion, let them do this work to stand up communities?
That first week, we knew childcare was an issue, because we knew that you had all those parents that were working, and then the first responders had to go to work, and they had kids to take care of. So that was the way that Jody came up and said, hey, we can do this. And so week one with that, there was different steps along the way, Rod, to your question. So week one with child care, probably 2 to 3 weeks in was the food and the work that you started with Park South, the meal distribution. But probably a month into it, I started thinking, we're going to come out of this and let's start going into the recovery mode. So at some point we knew we're going to open back up, but there's expectations on how we open back up, that we've got to do things differently. People are going to expect, you remember they'd start talking about masks, wash your hands, hand sanitizer, social distancing. So we knew that we're going to operate differently out of this. And so it was about a month into, we shifted to recovery, and reopening and recovery is how we looked at it. Yeah. And so that's where it put the energy to working on that. And if you remember, we got a lot of people involved in that. We had a small group that was kind of overseeing it, but then we got the executives involved and we got membership staff, and learned along the way. And I think that helped build an energy that, it's not going to be like this forever. We're going to come out of this and start thinking about how do we come out of it and get people focusing on the future rather than, gosh, we're stuck in this mess. Go like this. And I was really pleased just to see how people stepped up and the different ideas that came out of that. It was just neat to watch, because you remember what I tasked Rebecca Lee, our VP of membership, with, you're in charge of reopening. And so you put everything on paper and you have this plan. And then remember, we set up White Rock, one of our YMCAs, as the lab, and just kept bringing different groups of people over there to say, okay, does this work? Look at it from this lens. And you got a lot of great ideas through that. And that, I think that helped people to get excited about, gosh, we're going to open again. We've done these things in place. We've got feedback. And so that's, as a leader, you had to lift the mood to be ready to advance when time is ready, when the time is right.
Yeah. Yeah.
About lifting the mood. So I want to know how you check your emails today in comparison to an email that you received about this donor that wanted to give. Do you check your emails a little bit different today? Hey,
I probably ought to share the story a little bit with that one. So what Key's talking about is the Mackenzie Scott gift we got. And I had got an email probably middle November from a lady that I didn't recognize the name, and it I can't even remember the subject line. It says, in the message says, I represent a philanthropist that's interested in your organization. And you two have heard this, but I get an email probably once a month, somebody who basically they want access to our membership base so they can sell whatever they're selling, and then they're going to give us a cut out of whatever they're doing. So I got the email, I sent back, can you give me a little more information on what this is? And no, I really can't. Said, okay, I like going into a call prepared. I really can't give anything more than that. So some time passed, and then I think it was a text from Kevin Washington, and said, hey, you got an email from so-and-so, it's legit. So, okay, well, Kevin's saying it's legit. So I found the email, I emailed her back and said, hey, let's try and set this thing up. So that call is December 8th, 2020. She asked me if I've ever heard of Mackenzie Scott. Nope. So she goes, Google Mackenzie Scott. So I'm on the phone with her, Googling Mackenzie Scott, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, and she gave away $1.8 billion in July. I was like, boy, this is serious. 20 minutes later, she's telling me, or at the end of 20 minutes, we're getting a $10 million gift. And you can't tell anybody. And so I told our board chair, our finance chair, and I told Dave Bernowski, our CFO, they all three asked the same question. Is this legitimate? Do we need to give them our bank account? Is it coming from Nigeria? Anything like that? And then Monday, we've got 10 million in the bank. But I'll tell you that, so Tuesday was that call. It didn't really hit me until Friday. And my daughter and I were having dinner with my cousin and his family, and we're driving back. And I said, I need to tell you about the week I've had. And what the gift we've got. And I've got tears streaming down my face when I'm telling Caroline, because, and you've heard this, to have somebody on the outside recognize the good work you're doing in the midst of the stuff we were dealing with, really just said, you're on the right path. You're doing what needs to be done. You know what to do best with this money, so you figure out what to do with it. And it's just so affirming to me and to the why to have somebody step in, because that money's, the impact that money's going to make is huge. I mean, we're getting close to thinking about what that's going to be, but it's going to be huge when we get it figured out.
I'm gonna tell you, Curt, now, I have never seen a bank account with $10 million cash. Did you take a picture and make it the screenshot for your phone or hang it up? Like, I just want to see that, what it looks like.
I've got 3 gym bags with 10 million in cash.
Come into the office. I will be there shortly.
I had to see it, so I told him I wanted it in cash.
That's right. That's right. Small bills. Good. That was a good move right there.
Oh boy.
I would love to hear, like, everyone can kind of reminisce on all of the and the difficult things that they had to kind of make their way through in this last year of trying times. But what was some unintended gratifying outcomes for you? Like, what amazing special things happened there? You was like, oh snap, I didn't expect that.
A couple of things. Going to Park South and just seeing what's cool about Park South, and Rod, you started this, is the different groups that come together with the food, the Miles of Freedom, In the City for Good. It's just neat to see all those groups to come in and the energy that they bring for doing that. The things that took place through Catalyst, the blood drives, giving away the computers, the amount of food that we gave away, the school book, the backpack, the initiative of the school essentials, that was pretty cool. The volunteers, from the Zoom meetings, and Jill Magnuson, our board chair, tells us she became board chair in April. She's never had a face-to-face meeting. It's all been Zoom. But our attendance is running 75, 80% for every meeting, and y'all are seeing the same thing. And the volunteers have just been there for us, and the support they've given us is terrific. So that's a takeaway. Moments along the way when staff does something, or you get a note, or you hear from a parent, it's just, those things along the way make it bearable when some things were pretty difficult. When we were going through the staffing changes we had to make with layoffs and furloughs and a pay cut or cut in retirement, all of that weighs on me. But I'd get a note at the right time saying the right thing from somebody I didn't expect, where it was just affirming for, it's tough now, we support you, we believe in what's going to happen, and we know we're going to come out of this. So it was neat to get those things.
Well, I remember, typically my routine in going home, I pull in the driveway, and I'm the one to get the mail. And, who gets excited about going to the mailbox, right? Because nobody writes letters anymore. But I looked at the mail and I saw YMCA Metropolitan Dallas. And when a check is in, when a check comes, I'm like, what this? I opened it up and I saw, praise the Lord. And so right around Christmas time, and so I remember talking to you and I was like, man, I think I'm just have to call you Santa Claus, man, if you keep sending gifts like this. Like, when did that come about to make people back whole? Because that's not the conversation we had with colleagues. It was still in December, people were still looking at cuts, but yet you made the decision to make staff whole, their pay whole again.
When we made the decision, when I made the decision with some input from staff about cutting pay, and you remember that was September, because we didn't know what after school was going to do. We didn't know what fall sports are going to do. And those are big revenue drivers for us. And looking at the finance report for the end of November and seeing what position the Y was in, I called our our finance chair and our board chair. I said, this is something I'd like to do. And this is what we think it's going to cost to do it. And, there, at that time, David Bernowski, our CFO, he was the only one I talked to. The board supported it, endorsed it. The third person I let know was Susie, who does our payroll. So Suzanne didn't know, Brandy did not know, Carol Jordan didn't know, nobody knew. And I wanted it to be that way because I looked at it and said, staff's made this possible. The reason why we're in the shape we're in is that the hard work of staff and going through some tough decisions, they're doing more than they ever thought they could do, never thought they had been asked to do. And they're doing the work of others because there's people that just aren't here anymore. And so I wanted to make it a surprise, and I wanted as many people as we could to be surprised. And so Susie, to her credit, I called her on a Wednesday, said, here's what I need. Can you do it? And can you do it by yourself? And she goes, I think I can pull it off. And I think she got the checks in the mail Friday. Mm-hmm. A couple of people got them Saturday, and then I think it was Monday through Thursday when they were coming in. And that was the week before Christmas. So it was neat to be able to do that. And boy, some of the responses I got back, the financial shape that cut put people in, and it was a blessing to be able to do that. But also what it did is that we've got a lot of people who feel really good about where they're working right now and know that, we want to take care of them the best we can.
Yeah. I, in talking with colleagues during that time, the rhetoric was like, look, if Curt told us to run in the middle of 635 right now, we tying our shoes on. We don't know why, but we are headed that way. And do you
try to mess with Curt Hazelbaker? You talk about Curt Hazelbaker if you want to. We want to know.
Did not say nothing about Curt. And Keith didn't even buy me no good gift, Curt. I told it, Keith. You didn't even buy me nothing.
So Curt, you've been in the game for a long time.
You just ignored me, right? You saw that.
It's a good transition there, Keith.
You've been in the game for a while. And so I need you to dig back a little bit to your program days, because we have a lot of younger staff listen to the podcast, not just here in Dallas, but across the country. What is that decision that you made back then that you could give good advice to some of the younger staff that are listening right now that they can do to forward their career or not to do? Because I've heard a couple of your stories. So
I no longer have a bus driver's license after wrecking 3 buses. So that was a long time ago. One of them being behind the Richardson police station. So that's one thing I learned, that, I'm not good or shouldn't be driving buses anymore. And that was one of the best decisions. And I tell you all, if you still have a bus driver's license, let it lapse. You're always on call when you have that thing. Learnings along the way. I had a great mentor as my first executive director, a guy named Mike Hamilton at Town North. And he was really good about getting staff plugged in into the annual campaign. And so how important that was, supporting the volunteers and what we did with that money and really educating us. So the annual campaign. And I think when I was team director at Town North, now Simonis, the programs we had, I had a little Model UN program. We had a big youth and government program. We did lockouts. You can't do them anymore, but we'd be out from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. in volunteers and taking volunteers on all these different things and seeing how passionate they were for what we were doing. They weren't getting paid. They did it because they liked the why and they liked the kids. And I hadn't really thought about that, because back then I was in my mid-20s. I didn't really volunteer much. I did a little bit with church, maybe somebody was doing a run that I'd help out with, but didn't do a whole lot. And really learned a lot about the volunteers and the power you get from them getting involved in what you do. They bring you energy, they bring you wisdom, they're encouraging, they are that extra hand you need. And when started doing that stuff, that's when I figured I want to make this a career. There's more I want to do with this. I think I can do, I'd like to see what the next steps are. And that was really the springboard, Keith, to get going.
Yeah, I remember when I first came to Dallas, you were the exec at the then Garland branch, and then you transitioned to Coppell. And I remember, I think you were over teen programming, or you were like a teen leader or something for the association, and I was doing teen work at Moreland. And I remember the first meeting we had, and you came along. I was like, is that Matthew McConaughey? Like, is he a super? Man, I'm telling you, everybody in the room was like, that's Curt Hazelbaker. I was like, should I get his autograph? Like, oh my gosh, you had superstar status, and you had this gravitas, like this kind of sway in the room, like, what up, y'all? Yep, I'm in the space. I was like, I'm going to be like him when I grow up. Like, I really did think, like, is he a celebrity? Like, I'm new to Dallas. I didn't know. And so to come back all these years later and you're actually the CEO, that's so wow for me most days.
Me too. But I love Dallas. I mean, we moved to Dallas as a family in 1983. I left in 2003. So I had 20 years here. Dallas is a city that just gets things done. When there's something that's a need, they figure it out and get it done. So that can-do attitude, I really like. And I'm fortunate to lead a great Y. It's been a great Y for a very long time. The three CEOs before me, I knew them well, and still, one of Jack's passed away, but Ben and Gordy, they set the framework and the foundation for this place. And I look at it, I'm going to be here 12, 15 years before I retire. And in that minute of time in the history of the Dallas YMCA, how can I make it better? How can, working with team, staff, and volunteers, we leave the Y in a better place? And I think as leaders, that's always our responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Rod leading DE and I, you're the groundbreaker for our team in that role. How do you leave it in a position or get it to a position? Keith, all the work that you do with your branches and the executives that you got, how are they all better because of your leadership? And so that's how I look at the lens to it. But it's terrific to be back in Dallas. And I've told my colleagues around the country, when the pandemic, as the pandemic is ending, Dallas will come out of this thing a lot quicker than a lot of these other markets. The Northeast is going to struggle. Some of the places on the West Coast, and some of the older Midwest cities, the St. Louis, the Chicago's, Milwaukee's, we're going to come out of that faster than they do, because we were in such an energetic position, the whole state, and you look at the city of Dallas, you look at the Y, I think we're going to come out of this quicker than the rest of the country will. And it'll be a need for all of us to be a part of that.
Yeah. So in that same regard, we talk with lots of colleagues around the country, get a chance to move around the country and train and share and be a part of all these different initiatives. And Dallas is absolutely seen as one of the pace setters and one of the associations that people most want to emulate. So what do you see for the Y movement, right? Knowing the voice and the space that Dallas has, but what do you see for the Y movement? Especially when it talks about how we've pivoted as an organization, how we are becoming recommitted to what our mission is, the For All, the outreach piece, the social justice work that we are re-energizing, making this bold statement as a movement about becoming an anti-racist, multicultural organization. What do you see for the Y movement moving forward?
We're at somewhat of a pivotal time because Kevin Washington's announced his retirement. So we're going to have a new CEO sometime this summer in the early fall. So you've got a new leader who will come in. The pandemic, one of the good things out of the pandemic, we talked about there's several good things, but one of them is how Ys are working more closely together than they didn't do that in the past. And the two examples I'll give you three examples. One, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Arlington. We are doing more together than what we have ever done before. We share Todd Baker, our facilities guy. We're going to share David Frederick, the marketing guy. We'll do marketing for the three. We're going to talk to Fort Worth about their risk position and how do we share that. So that's one example. the State Alliance, the Wise in the state, we've got a call every other week, and we're doing more with the state than what we've ever done. And how can we leverage, there's 25 Wise in Texas, how can we leverage working together to get better? So San Antonio and Dallas are both looking at new software at the same time. So can we look at creating something that, if we're the first two in, could otherwise adopt it? And so we could get a similar platform. You can start sharing data and then show your impact better than what you had been able to do before. And then finally, one of the roles I've got is I chair YNAN. YNAN, I think probably most people know, it's the CEO is the largest 60 Ys in the US, plus the 10 largest in Canada. Every other week we do a phone call, and we get, or Zoom, and we get on a typical call, 45 CEOs. And the willingness to work together is so much stronger over the last year. Pre-pandemic, you had a lot of egos and, we're this Y and we're thumping our chest and we can do it and we don't need anybody else. Well, everybody's gone through this experience, and we're relying more on each other to say, hey, Curt, what'd you do in Dallas? Tim, what'd you do in St. Louis? Doug, what'd you do in Raleigh? And boy, you're getting better by sharing all those ideas. So I think that's a thing that's coming out, from the national movement. I hope that continues, and I think it will. I think that I've had the opportunity to give some input on the new YUSA CEO, and the national board and the search committee want to make sure that keeps going in the future. So that's what I see on the horizon, Rod, big picture wise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, man, lots going on. Curt, this has been fabulous. Appreciate the rawness and openness of being able to share with us, and our listeners out here. I think this one might go down as a top 10 for sure.
It's gonna be in the top 10. I'm calling it. I said it.
So thank you for listening to Cosmetic.
Our conversations are always global.
Globally minded and locally focused.
And check us out at ymcadallas.org/cosmetic. Leave us comments. Tell us what you think.
And as always,
Stay dynamic.
stay energized.
Stay cosmetic.